Hello there and welcome to another Commodore 64 playthrough. And I didn't realize I discovered a subgenre of Commodore games, but here is another nuclear power plant simulator. And this one is called Oakflat Nuclear Power Plant. I don't know if Oakflat really exists. In fact, let's do a little Google and find out, shall we? Oakflat. Sorry, it's not great YouTube this, but I'm actually Googling it while I'm doing this. So let's have a look. Oakflat. It's in Arizona. Oh, and does it have a nuclear power plant? I don't know. Let's have a quick check. Let's have a little look at this. Doesn't look like it. Doesn't say that at all. So it's a fictitious thing. Brilliant. Okay, so what's this game all about? Well, it's similar to the Chernobyl that I featured this week, in that you operate a power plant. This one's a lot more technical, and it's a lot more difficult as well. Having played the Chernobyl game a few levels, there's not actually a lot you do with the Chernobyl game. You just play it. There's a computer override which constantly changes the valve settings and everything. And I think it's looking at the manual. The manual has a command called override, which I believe allows you to actually take control of everything. But none of the commands for override will be accepted. I even had a look in the core of the game to look at the programming behind it, and there wasn't a command for override. So I think either I've got dodgy versions of the software, or we're missing something. So yeah, that was a bit disappointing, really. I was quite looking forward to seeing if I could blow the thing up, like you do, because you're childish. So anyway, this is based on keyboards. You get 4 screens. So this is the first screen. So the first thing you've got to do is get the thing going. So you've got your dials here. So at the very top is the statuses, and they change color if there's like an emergency, there's a problem, and they go from white to green to red. And then you've got the middle bit, which is your dials. So you've got your fuel rod percentage, which is 100%, and it counts down as you play through the game. You've got your control rod. I think it's the wrong way round. I think this is the amount of disengagement rather than engagement, because the higher this number is, the hotter your reactor is. So I think this is fully engaged, 0%, and fully disengaged is 100%. Then you've got the primary and the secondary coolant pump flow. You've got to be careful with this one. If you set it too high, you get leaks and you have problems. Kilowatt per hour being generated, core temperature, steam temperature, condenser temperature, the total number of time you've been running the game at the bottom, and your power output. Wow, I should be a physicist, shouldn't I? Remembering all of that. So yeah, I'm quite impressed I remember that. So first thing I'm going to do is get this thing going. So I'm just going to gently warm the thing up. So 10%, 50%, and 0%. So what gradually happens is that as it gets hotter, actually, I seem to have it seems to be getting colder. So I'm just gonna. In fact, I'll turn the coolant pumps off for now, just so I can get the thing up to a temperature. So I can see the core temperature is now rising, which is great. I'm just going to quickly flick you through to F7 because it shows you like a map of the reactor, so you can see all the different elements of it. So it's pretty similar to Chernobyl, this sort of screen, but this is a lot more in depth. You'll see there's valves and there's little green dots. So when something goes wrong with a valve, you actually see it on this screen as well. So I'm just going to go back to F1 because I don't want this thing to fry. So this is getting quite hot now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the reactor down, so turn the controllers down and get some flow going, because without coolant the thing won't work. It'll probably get a bit warmer then a bit colder. Let's see how we do. So you can see on the left hand side, kilowatts per hour, we're generating electricity now. Core temperature doesn't want to be anything higher than 700, so this is getting quite hot now. So I'm just going to quickly change this to 10% and slightly increase the flow. I don't want to increase the flow too much, because as I say, you will end up damaging it, and you actually get marks for how you damage it. So the skill in the game is balancing those 3 things at the top to actually allow you to play the game. So as you can see, my core temperature is falling now, so I just need to increase the rods a bit, and it's just playing that little game, that little balance between those 3 figures, so that the core's hot enough, but you've also got coolant flowing. Yeah, and I seem to really have gone down here. So I've turned on the reactor coolant pump, which was the little. I'm going to do it again. Press number 4. You see the little green thing. So I'm not really quite sure what that does. So I seem to be getting cooler again. So I'm going to change it to 25. So it gives you some sort of idea of how things are going. So at least I'm generating electricity, which is the whole point of the game. You get like an overall score. So if I press F5, you can sort of see how you've been doing, the damage you've caused. And if I go to F3, this is the foreman's view. So this is like the dials. I'm not sure what the second row is all about, but the other rows are pretty sort of obvious in how they're going. So the core temperature is still gradually increasing. I don't want it to get that high, so I need to radically change those control rod settings. See if I can cool the reactor down a bit. So yeah, 699. You can see it's gone white on the top left hand corner because it's getting just a little bit hot. So as that core temperature comes down, in fact I can change the flow. I can increase the flow slightly as well. Get the secondary pump up a bit. So yeah, so you can do that, and you've got commands to issue repairs as well. So you can do an on-the-spot repair just by pressing number 1, and then you can also shut it down and put it into maintenance mode. So I just need to control rods up again. The kilowatts per hour as well. You don't want to get above 1700 because that's another sort of red flag. So it's just balancing this thing really. It's just getting it nicely sort of working. So I'm getting hotter again. So I'm probably going to just put it down to 12%. And you do get leaks, you do get issues, so it's quite an involved game. So that seems to be pretty steady. I'm at 80%, so I'm just going to go to my little view of the reactor so you can sort of see the different temperature variations. I'm at 81%. You've got the at the bottom, you've got the primary and the secondary coolant pumps, and so you can see, oh, that's all going as well. So that's quite cool, really. So I guess the idea is to get to 100% if you can. I would imagine you get to 100% by playing around with those flow levels and with the rod levels, so that you've got that kilowatts per hour at about, as I say, 1700. But it's quite a delicate balancing act. So I'm going to increase that primary coolant pump to 75, and that may lower my temperature a little bit. Let's have a look. So it's lowered it a bit, but then the kilowatt hours has going down. So then I have to slightly increase the fuel rod. So it's there's a balance of this. So yeah, the game itself was shareware, which for the 80s was quite an unusual sort of model. You know, it was only really with the release of things like Doom in '93 really that shareware became one of those publicly acceptable things. So it's quite an interesting sort of idea. Also, it's available for DOS, which was released in the early 90s, and you can actually now today get a Windows version, which I think is so cool that you can get a Windows version of this game. So I'm gonna increase the fuel rods while I'm at it as well. I just want to get more juice going, so more coolant flowing, more fuel rods, more control rods. Sorry, so it's just gradually going up. 681, 682, 683. Turn the coolant pump on. Yeah, let's just cool it down a little bit. Turn it off again. Yeah, we don't really want that. So it's just finding a little balance with all this. It's quite clever, really. So I seem to have killed the reactor a little bit. It's gone to 639, but you know, there's no issues, there's no damage, nothing's going to blow up. Go back to here, and you can gradually see if there's going to be damage. So you can see the secondary coolant system. There's been some damage. So I could down the reactor, but the problem is you can't actually do any repairs on the reactor, any maintenance anyway, until the reactor's cooled down. So if I did it now, I'd have to cool it all down, wait, do the repairs, and do it again. So it's much better just to wait a length of time. You can do repairs on the spot though. If you press number 1, it will repair it, but that's only if you've got something flashing on the dials. So I'm going to see if I can get that core temperature back up. That's because I put the coolant pump on. That is my fault. In fact, I've gone the wrong way there. It should be 14, not 12. 14. If you're playing this on an emulator, you have to dig out the manual because you'll need to find out where your plus sign is, where your up arrow is. It's a little bit complicated. Oh, I'm getting colder. Why am I getting colder? Let's change it to 16. Let's see how we go. So yeah, that's better, isn't it? So I'm getting warmer again. It's quite cool. So, and then if you press H, it gives you all the keys, which is quite cool. And also, when you start the game, there is a manual you can read as well, so you can actually read up on some of the finer details of this. It's not actually as complicated as the Chernobyl game, which Chernobyl had like 100 valves that you could control and things like that. But it is it is a little bit more. It's harder to play, and there's a little bit more sort of intensity to it. So as you can see, that core temperature is rising, which I don't want it to do. So I'm going to put it back to 14 and see what sort of reaction that has. 692, 692. That's fine. 1500, and then I'm just going to try and increase the flow rate by a tiny bit. So if I increase the fuel rods and increase the flow rate, that should be okay. It's clearly obvious that this game was written in BASIC. You can just tell by the interface of it. It's got that sort of feel to it. So kilowatt hours is 1600, 94% power output. Absolutely delighted with that. And then what happens in the game, as I say, is you do get the odd leaks and everything. So I'm just going to check the status again. So 10% damage in the two systems. At some point, I will either get an alert and have to repair it there and then, or I will get have to shut it down to do the repairs. But as it stands, that's going really, really well. How's the foreman view? See, I've got no idea what that middle one is. P and 3Ts, not a clue. So you've got kilowatt hours, core temperature, steam temperature, and condenser temperature. That makes sense, yes. And the ones at the bottom make sense. 3% damage, fair enough. How much electricity I've generated. So when you actually complete the game, you get a sort of a score, and it tells you how much energy you've produced, what its value was, and then it takes off any costs for repairs, costs for downtime. And if you do end up with a nuclear meltdown, it will actually tell you how much that cost and how long it was down for. So I might as well simulate that seeing as we've gone through here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to completely engage the control rods, or completely disengage, sorry, the control rods, turn the pumps off, and it will quickly melt this thing. So let's have a look. So this is 100%, and I'm going to turn the pumps off, and this should just go into a complete melt. As you can see up there already, yep, all the red lights, all the flashing. F7, so you can see, oh dearie me, everything's dying. Yeah, bing, 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 bing. Yeah, it's all going red. Oh dear, and then you can see reactor meltdown. So we've basically destroyed America. Didn't take much doing either, did it? So there. So yeah. So you can play this and play this and play this and just keep doing it. So it's a lot more of a game than the other one, the Chernobyl was. That was a bit sort of as I say, once you got it going, there wasn't really much to do. So here it's telling you that you've just basically. I mean, I love the way that it says 2,500 years. From what I know about nuclear reactions, it's a lot longer than that. Oh dear. Oh, and all of your skin is burnt off. Have a nice day. Brilliant. So it then gives you these little scores. So it tells you how long you played it for, how much fuel you spent, and so on. So 67% power output, how many days you had it down and stuff like that. And then here we go. So it shows you how much electricity you've generated, but also the damage. £500,000 for a nuclear power plant. That sounds quite cheap, actually. And then it comes up some sarcastic stuff. Yeah, so I mean, if it's melted down, there's no plant left, but fair enough. So there was a significant number of errors, and then it's going to tell me that I'm terrible. There we are. Your ability to generate electricity for your company was very poor. Ah, yes, and your overall performance was horrible, and I got a score of 0. So the game actually has the ability to save to disk, and then you can sort of relive your sort of how it's all doing as well. So as I was saying, that you get the instructions as well, so you can read all the instructions about the game, about how you play it, what you're meant to be doing, the different temperatures. What I did is I took screenshots and I just had them open on my second monitor, because it's just nice to know all these. And there's that Gamtech. If you go to the Gamtech website, you can see all of this, and it's quite cool, really. But yeah, so I think this is a bit of fun. I might actually play this a few times and see how long I can do it. I'd imagine that when the fuel rods run out, I think that must be the end point to say that the game's, because I have put it into maintenance mode back again, and I've had the same amount of fuel. So I think that's how it works as a game. But yeah, so this subgenre of games for running nuclear power plants on a Commodore, marvelous. So if anybody knows of any more, please let me know, because I think it's absolutely fascinating. And obviously, in the 80s, it was a really big deal with Chernobyl and the Cold War. So yeah, good old programmers and developers for hijacking, if you like, hijacking what was essentially a disaster. I will leave a link to the GamTech website so you can see it for yourself in the description. And yeah, no, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you've got any questions, please leave them below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.